Hi, everybody. I think I might have mentioned in one of my videos that I wanted to talk about, that basically my experience growing up a Jehovah's Witness is not just due to me growing up as a witness. I think that sometimes because of me growing up as poor and black, that some of my experience as Jehovah's Witness might have been framed because of that. And so as to, I don't ever want to blame or make it seem as though my entire life experience comes from me being a Jehovah's Witness. Some of it could be because some of my experience growing up was also being poor and black. So I wanted to just kind of touch on that. Obviously, being poor and black presents its own challenges, and then being a Jehovah's Witness presents another challenge. And so when you put those two things together, um, I think it makes for a unique experience. Now, I'm just kind of winging it and talking about this, so I apologize. I don't have like an outline or anything specific that I want to talk about. That I just kind of want to uh, sort of perhaps briefly. I don't know. Sometimes I tend to ramble. Just discuss my experience on um, one, black people. I think already have a reputation for being very religious. Most black people identify as Christian. Okay, so it's not really surprising that my mother, um, you know, identified as a Christian and then as Jehovah's Witness. Now, one of the things that I feel happened, my mother had an eighth grade education. So my mom did not ever go to high school. She uh, got married very young and began having children. So her experience is one that I think my mother unfortunately was a little bit naive and very easily influenced. And I believe that her background was one of a lot of pain and heartache, and she experienced a lot of negative things as a child. And I think she was one of those people who gravitated towards those things that Jehovah's Witnesses teach at the door, oh, paradise, and there's so much love in the organization, and all of those things that attract people to the organization. I think my mother was very susceptible to needing those things in her life, which is what attracted her to being a Jehovah's Witness, um, instead of perhaps some other religion. However, my experience growing up as a Jehovah's Witness to me wasn't any different than perhaps if my mom had just gone to church. We were still poor. The organization does not help you if you're poor. I do know as I've gotten older, I realize just from talking to people who go to other churches or maybe other religions who are not black. I don't know because I've never gone to a church. But it seems that there's maybe more of a community in some churches where they try to pick up those people who maybe down and out or things of that nature. When you grow up as a witness, as much as witnesses talk about, um, you know, helping others and talk about widows and children, I did not experience Jehovah's Witnesses, really taking the time to help any particular uh, mother or child who may have been struggling, whether it's financially or not have a father present, unless, like the father maybe was an elder and he died, or, it, you know, unfortunately, I grew up, my stepfather was not a witness. So we did not have, I guess, what you would say, a spiritual leader in the household. My mother was primarily responsible for teaching us, you know, things as far as religion and life. And so going to the Kingdom Hall, we were almost like fatherless because we didn't have, I did not, my family didn't have that experience where we have a brother at the Kingdom Hall with us who can really take the lead. And unfortunately, my experience is in being a Jehovah's Witness, I believe that a lot of times if you do not have a male in your household that is a witness, a lot of times single mothers at Kingdom Halls, instead of being embraced, they appear to sometimes be neglected because men at the Kingdom Hall and elders are not really allowed to talk with sisters. Like, they're not able to direct them because Jehovah's Witnesses very strongly believe in the man as the head of the household. So even if the man in the family is not a spiritual leader, he's not a Jehovah's Witness, the elders don't feel it is their place to bypass that male and then try to direct the woman and her child. So I guess in some respects that may be them showing respect, but it was just my experience that it left us feeling alienated from the other witnesses who had, whole families attending the Kingdom Hall. My mother, I feel, didn't have the support that she might have received had my father also attended the Kingdom Hall. And so she tried her best, and she did try to teach us as much as she could. However, the other thing is that my mother, unfortunately, never got rid of a lot of her, I would say, traits that she brought into being a Jehovah's, which is that my mother believed in using the rod, and my mother did not spare the rod. I would say my mom, unfortunately, borderline abused my siblings when she would discipline them, and that's something that I don't publicly speak about. So this is like really the first time that I've said that, and I feel like the only reason I can say that now is because my mother is deceased, and I would never have the heart to say that if she were alive, because I would never want to make her feel bad. I do think my mother thought that she was doing what was best for her children, but it has caused a lot of damage to my older siblings. I can see it, and we don't talk about it as siblings, but I see it and I notice it in the way that they are. So I believe that me and my younger sister were kind of spared because my mother didn't whoop us as much, I guess is really the term, because by that time she was a little bit older and more involved in the organization. As I stated before, my mom, I was raised as a witness and my siblings were not, so my mother was kind of early into the organization when they were teens by the time my mother became a witness. So I think that it took her a while to shed a lot of her negative behavior. And so I didn't get the brunt of it. I got it, definitely, but I didn't get it as bad as my older siblings. So growing up in that type of environment where you are a witness, but you're still seeing abuse, is, I guess, contradictory to what the organization teaches. And aside from that, I won't say that because the organization doesn't actually, that I know of, talk about, whether or not it's okay to abuse your children. And, we all know that scripture that says, not to spare the rod. And it seems to me, just based on what I've read, that the organization supports, they don't denounce it, I guess I would say. I never heard a talk as many talks as we hear as Jehovah's Witnesses, I never heard a talk at all ever where the organization or the elders tell parents it's not okay to whoop your children or to hit them with objects or whatever form of discipline, using violence as discipline. And so I think that had my mother heard that, honestly, I believe had my mother heard that from the platform, she would have not done it, because my mother was very devout as Jehovah's Witness. And it's like everything the organization taught was what she tried to do. My mother was very quiet and soft spoken and shy, but she believed that she needed to go out and field service, so she would do it, even though she was very uncomfortable with it. But she felt that was what she was supposed to do. So I believe that had the organization put any type of emphasis or, made statements that, it's not okay to hit your children in that way, I think my mom wouldn't have done that. The other thing that I saw my mom do growing up poor is, the organization likes to talk about the fact that they're different because they don't ask Jehovah's Witnesses. They don't pass around the collection plate. They don't, hey, you have to contribute. But at the end of the day, Jehovah's Witnesses are always asking for donations. The elders are always asking for donations. Anytime the funds at a Kingdom Hall are getting low, the elders will give sometimes a little special segment on, the Theocratic Ministry School meetings, which I don't know if it's still called that, but they'd give a special segment about, Jehovah's Witnesses' responsibility to, support and, in order to get more donations. So they don't pass around a collection plate, but your responsibility to contribute as a Jehovah's Witness is very well known, and it is something that is constantly talked about, especially when you go to the conventions or assemblies on an annual basis. I remember, my mom, we didn't have the money to always pay for hotels to go. The assemblies and conventions were always in other cities. We had to travel a lot of the times growing up to get to the assemblies and convention, and that took a toll on us financially. We did not have the money to make these drives. We didn't always have good cars that were able to make the drives. There were times we didn't have a car at all. So it's having to ride with other people, or and my mom always felt bad because she felt that she needed to be at these events, or she lived her life trying to live up to the standards that the organization set, and everything that they said was the way it's supposed to be. I remember very vividly one time I actually was angry at my mom because we didn't have money. And when the circuit overseers would come to give their talks, as a Jehovah's Witness, there's the circuit overseers that come every once in a while, and they are like these big people in the organization because they give the best talks. And I look at them kind of now as like really good salespeople, because it's like their whole job is to just really sell the organization, and they have like the best illustrations. So their talks are always very inviting, and you really like to hear them. But one of the things that Jehovah's Witnesses are encouraged to do is to contribute, because the circuit overseers don't have jobs. The organization doesn't pay them. So they are supported by donations. And I don't know the way it is at other Kingdom Hall, but at my Kingdom Hall was always like this thing to sort of hand the circuit overseer some money with a handshake, so that you're like giving him money without it like being out in the open. And I remember once my mom gave $20 to circuit overseer. We did not have $20 to spare, guys, and I was like frustrated. Like, to me it's like, Mom, Jehovah understands if we don't have the money to give to the circuit overseer. But my mom was such, she was actually like a really, nice person, and she wanted to do the right thing. I mean, I don't know. It's like she was very, I don't know. It's sad sometimes I think about it, but my mom really felt that the organization was special, and she went out of her way to do what she felt she should do in the organization. And it's just, I'll never forget that day, because like I said, we just didn't have the money. We did not have we didn't have $20 to give to the circuit overseer. And I mean, the circuit overseers, they drove nice cars, because the donations would pay for their cars, or when they would go from city to city, the friends would give them places to stay. So it I don't know, my experience growing up as a Jehovah's Witness, or poor black Jehovah's Witness, was I guess it wasn't different. I still felt poor and black, even though I was a Jehovah's Witness. That never went away, and nothing helped that, no matter how much my mom tried to do for Jehovah and for the organization. It didn't change our status in life. And the other thing is, the organization doesn't encourage higher education. So college, unfortunately, was not something that poor Jehovah's Witnesses should have been striving for. Now I do know witnesses who've gone to college, and they, are generally the ones who are successful, but the ones who unfortunately listen to this advice of the organization that you should be striving towards spiritual things. For some of us, that affected the way we thought about college and higher education. And honestly, I think that my mother, would have been better off going to school and trying to get an education, but she instead dedicated her life to Jehovah and being a witness and being a part of that organization. And for many years, my mother was a stay-at-home mom, and that's all she did was study. And she did take care of the house. Our house was always clean, but she studied, and her purpose was being a Jehovah's Witness. And we were poor. I mean, we could have used the extra money, had my mom not focused so much on education. On the organization, but rather educating and providing for our family. And I hate to say that, because it sounds sad, and I really don't. I didn't want to come on here and say negative things about my mother. I feel my mother did the best she could. I really do. But my experience, like I said, growing up as a Jehovah's Witness, it's just, I was still poor and black. No one helped us. We still, and not that I expected that. It's just it's the same, and it took me becoming an adult to learn to fend for myself and to make different choices. I went to college as an adult, so I did not go to college right out of high school, which I wish I had, because I was on my way to being valedictorian, and I could have got a lot of scholarships, but I didn't, because instead I was thinking that, hey, I want to be a pioneer one day, or I want to actually. I never want to be a pioneer. What I wanted to do was I wanted to go to Bethel, because I was one of those witnesses who I really wanted to be close to Jehovah. And even when I was having doubts, I always, for some reason, felt that I would learn the actual truth, which is weird, because even though we were taught that what we were learning was the truth, I didn't believe it. I felt like if I go to Bethel, or if I go to Gilead, I'm going to learn the real truth, the real actual truth of the scriptures, and not, I don't know why I seem to believe that, as a little person at the the organization, I was just getting drivel, because you hear about these special schools, the pioneer school, and you're learning all this stuff. And then there's Bethel, where, I always heard that Bethel was a place where they read the Bible every day, and, you're so engrossed, and then you're there with the governing body. And so to me, it was like this place where I get to get all of the spiritual enlightenment. And then Gilead was, just, you're engrossed in teachings. I remember seeing videos as a kid, and I wanted to be that. I wanted to go to Gilead. I wanted to go to Bethel. I wanted to learn the more advanced truths, because I wanted to know what the real teachings of the Bible were. But that was just my experience. And but like I said, I think that we could have gone to church, and my life would have been maybe better, because I probably would have gone to college. It was straight out of high school, and my mother probably would have been more focused on education. And yeah, I will say that this is one of the things that I have an issue with religion in and of itself, is that I think that religion makes you so reliant on prayer and this expectation that God is going to direct your life, that you don't take control of your own life. You don't make choices. Sometimes, especially, I feel as Black people, we pray a lot, and we rely a lot on religion, whether you're Jehovah's Witness or you're just a Christian. It's like we're always, we as a culture, are some of the most unfortunate people. We are the worst off. We are the poorest. We are the least educated. But we spend a lot of time in prayer and devotion to religion, and this concept that God is going to rescue us. But if we remove that expectation of waiting on God, I think we'd accomplish so much more. And I say that because I've accomplished so much more outside of the organization than I would have in it. And when I went back to the organization, I saw a lot of women who were uneducated, who were still very reliant on their husbands for their financial well-being. And I was saddened by that, because here I am at that point in my, mid 30s, and I have a degree, and I have a good job, and I don't have that reliance on my husband or the organization or anyone else. I was very independent, and the few other witness women that I saw that had that level of independence, they have a different type of personality. I was able to notice it. And that, I think, is what you lose being a Jehovah's Witness. You lose the ability to get out of the predicament you're in, because you're so dependent and reliant on the organization, to tell you what to do with your life, to, you're donating all of this money to the organization, if you're that type of witness. And now I will say that I saw elders, in my particular Kingdom Hall. To me, I saw elders that reminded me a lot of preachers, where, you see that these preachers who are driving the nice cars and they're wearing the nice suits, and that's what I saw at my Kingdom Hall. So again, yeah, I was Jehovah's Witness, but it's no different, I feel like, than going to church, because here I see these, black elders driving Mercedes and Lexuses, and the rest of us are poor. The rest of us are struggling to survive, and we're going to the Kingdom Hall all the time as Jehovah, 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 and prayer, prayer, prayer. But you're doing okay, and my mom, you know, is struggling to raise all these kids, and with a stepfather who was also uneducated, and didn't have higher education, didn't have a good job, and it's just it's I saw hypocrisy at the Kingdom Hall. I saw elders get disfellowshipped for cheating on their wives. I saw a lot of young black kids having sex, and you know engaging in activities shouldn't engage in. So Jehovah's Witnesses are supposed to be a religion that is different and pure, and Jehovah's organization, but truly that wasn't my experience. My experience was very much, I think, just the growing up poor and black experience. It's no different, because obviously when you live in certain neighborhoods, most of the Jehovah's Witnesses who go to your Kingdom Hall are black. So you still have to deal with those cultural things that don't go away because we're worshiping Jehovah instead of Jesus. It's still the same, though all of that culture in black communities is still exists. And I think that's really the only difference. It's just a different religion. So I don't have a lot to say, and actually I need to start getting ready for work now, so I'll end there. But that's just my experience. I just wanted to quickly talk about, I say quickly, but it really hasn't been that quick, but just talk about my experience as a poor black Jehovah's Witness. It's just I think that it's no different than any other religion. There's nothing that I gained, I don't feel, or being a witness, that I wouldn't have gained being a Christian. And so that's my experience. Until next time, thanks.